Good morning. Welcome to ClayChat. Welcome, Jerice and Mike. Thank you for helping there in the background. Today, Jerice will tell us about her clay journey. She's going to tell us about her travels, her speciality of luster. So I'm looking forward to it. Jerice, over to you.
Thank you, Rika. It's very nice to be having a clay chat with you and other potters. There's nothing I would rather do on a Friday morning or at any other time. And I must thank Mark. Mark, say hello.
Hello, everyone.
Mark is helping me because I'm technically disadvantaged. I have a great picture of everybody floating around, sitting on the edge of clouds with their legs, your legs hanging down, because that's how much I know about technology. So welcome to you all, and I hope you're going to enjoy and maybe get a little bit of information from what I might say. Rika asked me to talk about my journey with clay. I must admit that I didn't have any thoughts of clay as I was growing up, and I went to university to do a science degree, majoring in maths and psychology. Got married, we went to live in Port Elizabeth, and when the children went to school, I thought, well, I must get a hobby. So I looked at various options, like knitting and embroidery and macrame and cooking classes. And then I saw an advert from the Port Elizabeth Now, whatever it's called, for pottery classes. And I thought, well, I used to really like making mud pies when I was little. So curry and pies, no. Mud and clay, yes. And that's when I enrolled at the technical college, as it was at that stage, and did a short course, a hobby kind of course. But that changed my life completely because I just became so involved with this story of clay that I wanted to know more. So I signed up for another 2 years. I will now show you what we were taught right at the beginning. We started with pinch pots. And here are some pinch pots. They are ducks made out of terracotta with some sgraffiti and highly burnished. There's no glaze on them. And if you are cricket followers, this is the right time now to send me out for a duck. If you don't want to watch anymore, you can turn out for a duck.
We would like you to continue, please.
So when I went further on at the college, it was just an eye-opener to me. We had some wonderful, wonderful teachers there. And one of the most special ones for me was somebody called Mac. And he had come out from England. He belonged to one of those big Stoke and Trent families. And he'd done something that they wanted to get him out of the country and into the colonies for a while. They used to call them remittance men or something. I don't think he'd committed any crimes, but he was a master thrower. And he taught me how to throw. And that was at the beginning of this major journey of mine, because I have always liked throwing. I've worked on the wheel for the last 50 years or more. And thanks to him, I learned some wonderful techniques, and I really enjoyed the throwing. I loved throwing bowls. I loved throwing bottles. You can see the two on the left here. Those are 2 terracotta bottles. And the ones on the right are earthenware glazed bottles. The tall one there is about half a meter high. And so the journey continued at the Technicon. And what we learned, we put into practice. We made our work. It went into a kiln, which I was told was called a bisque kiln. came out the next week and we dipped it in buckets of glaze. You had a blue glaze and a green glaze and a red glaze, and there were notices on the red and the orange not to be used for domestic purposes, for food. And this started me thinking, now, I really want to know more about all of this, because it involves the clay and the feel of that wet, wet earth in your hands. And it involves some chemistry, it involves some physics with the kilns and the temperatures. And this seemed to me just what I was needing at that time. So after the 2 years, I went and I set up my own studio in Port Elizabeth, where I started making mostly domestic wear. I think we've skipped to something else, to the, no, sorry. Well, I was making domestic wear and I started teaching.
Are these pots that were in a magazine of yours, Jerice?
Yes, my husband, these were 2 pots on the left here. There were 3 originally. They were the first pieces I submitted for an exhibition, because at that stage, Sari Maritz and Sari now lives in Namibia and is still making wonderful pots. We had joined the Association of Potters, which had been started by a group in Johannesburg. And we joined them and you know, got their newsletters and everything. And then we found there were enough potters in PE to form a branch of APSA, which we did. And we then were able to join in their exhibition. So those were my pots, my very first pots from the exhibition. And just by coincidence, my husband went on a business trip to Germany, and on Frankfurt Airport, he bought this Panorama magazine, and then there were my pots that were in the gallery at the top of the Volkscost building in Pretoria. So he came home and I was very surprised to be given this magazine, which I still have. And I actually still have 2 of the pots because one of them got sold. But these pots are quite important for me. I was very influenced at that stage by Hans Koper and Lucy Ree. I hope some of you know who they were. They were wonderful British potters, not really British, but they lived in Britain. And these pots were earthenware pots, which had a wash of manganese and a white glaze that I had made myself. My husband was a metallurgical engineer, and without him, I would never have got where I've been. He was an absolute inspiration and help to me, because he understood this process of glazing. He knew what you did, what percentage of copper would be good in this and cobalt in that, and what would react with nepheline cyanide or anything like that. So I learned a lot from doing that in my own studio. And you will see, I think maybe in the next slide, will you see them? Yes, thank you. No, and the other next one. You will see these pots on the right, which are fairly recent pots that I've made in Pretoria in porcelain. And they have got the same glaze. They've got stripes of manganese on the body of the bottles, and here is where the temperature of the kilns come in. The earthenware pots were fired at a low temperature, so the glaze is stable and matte, and it actually works as an earthenware glaze. But when you fire it at a higher temperature, you can see, I hope, how the glaze has run down and pulled the stripes down, and it's pulled a little bit at the bottom just because of the difference in the temperature. And this is the sort of thing that was interesting me, and I was experimenting all the time with glazes and temperatures and firing and different bodies. we moved to Pretoria. Oh, that's also an earthenware bottle with slip and a transparent glaze.
You were starting to talk about Pretoria, Jerice?
Yes. Now, we moved up to Pretoria, and I was making a lot of domestic wear at that stage, because the exhibitions in those days were very much about domestic wear. There was hardly ever any conceptual work. There was quite a bit of sculpture and domestic wear, which sold very well, and it was a feature on the exhibitions. And gradually over the years, that has changed, and there really is not very much domestic wear on the exhibitions anymore, which I think is a pity, because there's nothing better than using handmade pottery for your own meals, to give to friends, for entertaining. Somehow or other, it feels different. Well, to me anyway. I have all my meals out of pots and bowls that have been made by very many of my friends and by myself. But I don't ever eat off a bowl from Mr. Price or anything like that, because to me it just makes it more of a pleasure to eat off something that you really enjoy looking at as well. That's just another domestic bowl. This is one of my Tenmoku pots. I love Tenmoku glaze. It's very rich, and it's reminiscent of the Anglo-European work. And in the early days, we just had to, we copied the work from England, from Bernard Leach and Michael Cardew and people like that. They were all our inspiration. And so we tried to make glazes and do work in that style of Anglo-English.
Jerice, how was that particular piece fired? Is it an electrical kiln?
That was fired in an electrical kiln, yes. It fires very much the same in the gas kiln. But that was an early piece, and it's faceted, and it was fired. It's a Tenmoku glaze I had made at some stage. Yeah. This is some more. This is now from the reduction kiln, with the greeny color and the gray color. And that is also a large lasagna dish.
You want to tell us about your kiln that you were doing reduction in, Jerice?
I had two reduction kilns, a small one that my husband built for me, and then a larger one that we bought from PSMO. They worked very well for me. I don't know if you want me to explain a bit about the difference, because you do get very different things out of the kilns. The reduction fired kiln, the reduction removes all the oxygen out of the glazes, and so it changes the glazes completely. I don't know if you can see, if I show you, if I hold this up, can you see this?
Yes,
Can you see these two? Can you see these two?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
This is the same glaze. This is in the electric kiln, and this is in the reduction kiln.
Okay.
It's a glaze with some iron in it, which gives you this yellowy color, but when the oxygen is taken out and the iron is reduced, you get this lovely green color.
Was it gas that you used at that stage, Jerice?
Yes, it was a gas kiln, yes.
That was quite new for us, because that was a new technique in South Africa. How many potters were using that technique?
Not very many. there were a few, you know, I mean, I think in the Cape, the people who were making domestic wear to earn a living, to keep, they had to keep their kilns full. They mostly, I think, used reduction kilns. Elder Sullivan here in Pretoria had one, and I had one. It's a kiln where you never quite know what you're going to get. With an electric kiln, you more or less know what you're getting when you put your pot in. But with the reduction kiln, the flames and the way they wrap around the pots give you something quite different, although you do know what colors they're going to be. But it's all a matter of temperature control and the difference between the two.
Wonderful. I assume you had to develop your own new glazes because it's different than some of the glazes that you had to use. Beautiful, that charger. And Mike, you can move on to the next slide.
That's a set of bowls, also in the reduction kiln. Well, it just shows you that I like throwing bowls, because I just obviously went on and on and on. It's a very large bowl, so it had to have 10 small bowls to go with it. Oh, this is also in the reduction kiln, the copper reds. It was quite interesting to experiment with this copper red glaze, because it was very new, well, new because people weren't using it. But the piece that I have, you'll see later on the Corabrick collection, was made with this copper red glaze, except I didn't use the glaze on its own. I was experimenting, and I think you can see a bit of it on this small pot at the bottom. I used my white glaze, my trusty old white glaze, underneath. I first dipped the pot into that glaze. Then I did some graffiti on it, and then I sprayed the copper red on top. And it came out with a very shiny, lovely sort of pattern almost that is very, very subtle on the pot. So you have to look at it carefully, but it was a very unusual effect, and not just red. And I was very excited with that. And when Corabrick bought that pot, which was a long, long time before I was involved in the collection, I was very happy and impressed, and that they had liked it so much.
Was that on stoneware or was it porcelain, Jerice?
No, that was on stoneware in those days. The copper red comes out a lot more shiny on the stoneware, on the porcelain, because of the smoother surface. I also love making teapots. As you can see, these teapots are. I also did. There was a miniatures exhibition at one stage, and I made all these little teapots. The bigger teapots, 2 of them, are from the reduction kiln, and the one on the right-hand side is a porcelain teapot.
Beautiful.
My daughter had been at Pretoria High School for Girls. When we moved up here, she did her last 2 years there. And when she finished school, they asked me if I would come and help them with their extramural pottery classes, which I did. And I had been teaching in my own home studio in Port Elizabeth, and also once I set myself up in Pretoria. And I found that I had a great love for teaching, which I was very surprised about. But the reactions and the interactions with the people who came to learn, I never had more than about 4 students in my home studio, because we were we were learning together. We were on this journey together, and we used to bounce things off each other. And to me, that was a wonderful experience. So I happily went to Girls' High and did an afternoon there with the girls. And after a year or so, they decided that they were going to build a new art center. And the Girls' High, if anybody knows it, has got the most wonderful gardens with beautiful, enormous trees. And they built this lovely pottery studio down in the gardens amongst the trees. And so we moved everything down there. We obviously got new equipment, more wheels, another kiln. And that was 17 years of absolute happiness teaching those girls. And after a year or two, the department decided that they would put pottery into the matric syllabus as an elective. And the girls had to all do history of art and drawing, but then they could choose between pottery, sculpture, printmaking, painting, and I can't remember what else as their electives. So, and I was asked to help to do the syllabus for the matric exams. And when, after 17 years, when I wanted to really concentrate perhaps on my own work, I reluctantly retired from Girls' High, where I'd been going in on a part-time basis, one afternoon and most mornings for an hour or two to do the 9 and 10 pottery classes. And my last matric class decided they were going to make this mural that depicted us leaving the school, but leaving parts of us behind. That was their impression of the exercise that we did, they did. And that mural is still there because they've just recently revamped the school, the art center, and it's got the most magnificent art center now. It's a bigger pottery class, a printmaking, a jewelry section. It's just a wonderful place for the girls to go. And having them in the classes, they showed me how much pleasure they got out of relaxing in an environment where they weren't being taught as such. They were free to do their own thing and to talk while they were doing it. And it was just an eye-opening experience for me. And one morning I came home from Girls' High, and my husband said to me, "You've had a phone call from Japan." The phone call said, "Pleased to be in Imari on 15 August. And my husband said, "Oh, my wife's not here at the moment. Please to send an email." So eventually the email came, and the whole story was that they wanted me to go to Japan to be a judge at the World Ceramics, the World Children's Ceramics Festival, the World Children's Ceramics Festival. Japan was having this enormous ceramics festival, the World Festival. It was took almost the whole of the South Island. It was everything from children's ceramics to space age ceramics, where they had a space rocket in one of the buildings, because a lot of the makeup of the space rockets is very high density and high concentration of ceramic materials. And in between, there were the wonderful exhibitions and other uses for ceramics. So I had been responsible through Ceramics SA, well, it was still APSA at that time. I had been responsible for collecting work, children's work from all over South Africa, and sending it to Japan for this exhibition. but I certainly had no idea that I would be involved in this way. So it was a great honor for me to be invited to go as a judge. And I said to my husband, well, would he come with me, and we would pay for his his accommodation and his flight and everything. And off we went to Japan. Well, after a bit of a struggle, because the travel agents didn't know where this Fukuyama airport was, which was about 3 hours from where Imari is on the South Island. So we eventually managed to get flights and get there in time and be picked up at the airport and driven to a 3 to 4 hour journey. We couldn't speak a word of Japanese, and of course the driver who Frenched us couldn't speak any English, but anyway, we had a good journey. We stopped along the way for some Japanese food, and we arrived in Imari at midnight. And at midnight, we had been asked whether we would like to stay in a Western-style hotel. There was one in the vicinity, or in the Japanese style. So we obviously said we would like to stay in the Japanese style hotel. So we arrived there at midnight, and there were 3 Japanese gentlemen in suits and ties and very shiny polished shoes, and waiting at the door of this inn. And so we bowed and they bowed, and we had an interpreter who then joined us. And that was the start of our trip to Japan. And we were in this village for 2 weeks, and every night we would go out with the potters, the local potters, and we would go to the inns and sit on the floor at these low tables and eat the most amazing food off the most amazing platters and in the bowls and the sake cups. It was just an amazing experience. There were 3 potters from outside Japan. The whole exhibition was centered around the fact that Japan had opened up its trade, ceramic trade, to the rest of the world. And the trade route went from the south of Japan, where we were, to past Indonesia, South Africa, and eventually to Holland. And so I was there representing South Africa. There was an art dealer from Indonesia, and there was a sculptor from Holland. And so the whole thing was a very well-arranged and exciting time, because we got to see so much and meet so many wonderful people. And each of us was paired with one of the Japanese treasures. I don't know if you've studied anything about Japan, but Japan is very, very good to its artists. They're held in very high esteem. And if you get to the top level of your art form, you become a national treasure, and you're supported by the state and given everything you need, including a Mercedes if you want one. And so that was how we spent our 2 weeks in Japan, looking at the work. We judged over 1,000 pieces from all over the world. I think there's another slide there. These are some of the South African pieces. This little zebra here on the side actually won one of the awards. So we had to go off in our pairs with our Japanese national treasure, and we couldn't talk to each other except through the interpreter. But it was extremely hot in August. We had our fans, and we would just go around and point to the piece that we thought should be chosen from each section. And I think only once did we not choose the same piece. So it doesn't matter where you are, who you are, if you're involved in ceramics, you somehow seem to develop an eye for quality and for what piece would be the best to choose.
Jerice, do you think any of these people are still doing pottery?
These youngsters?
Yes.
I doubt it. Well, they might be, I don't know. They didn't really understand. They were aged between, I think it was between 9. But the work was amazing. And from everywhere, from every continent, there were groups, and they were done, we were judged in continents, and then eventually the ones from each group were taken out and put together, and then the prizes were awarded to the ones where when I actually didn't get involved when they were talking about the South African one. But it was very interesting to see that for wherever they were in the world, these children, if they made a figure, they would have big hands and big feet. So if it was a South African figure or a figure from Honduras or Canada or anywhere else, they all had this feature of big hands and big feet. We did go on after that and to Kyoto and spend some time looking at other Japanese ceramics. So it was a wonderful, wonderful journey. Yeah. Then I did a lot of workshops for and workshops were also very exciting because it was nice to show people things. I think this picture on the right is myself and Sharon Mitri, if I'm not mistaken.
I was wondering.
Yes, we had Jack Doherty here as an award judge for 1 year. He was the chairman of the British Potters Association, and he was a wonderful thrower also. And he came out to judge our exhibition and to do workshops. And we had a week-long workshop with him. And one of the things he made us do was throw together. So Sharon would throw, but then I would throw, but on top of that. And then we'd go on and on and on. Oh, we had such a lot of fun. Then came the African Earth exhibition, which was a very exciting exhibition for the ceramic people in South Africa, because it was, we were invited by the World Conference on Sustainable Development, which was held here in Johannesburg in, I think, 1996 or something. And this was a sort of precursor to all these conferences they're having now on climate change, because invited Ceramic SA to present an exhibition at the what's it called, the Mary Fitzgerald Square, the museum there. And so I decided I was going to stick to the porcelain. A lot of people worked through the earthenwares, the earth and everything, but I was busy with porcelain at that stage, and so I stuck to the porcelain, but I decided that I would decorate with the metals that came out of the African earth. So I made this black glaze, and this sort of explosion of the gold coming out of the earth, and then I made a range of bowls with the black glaze that represented the coal from the earth, and the gold, luster, copper, cobalt, various decorations with the lustres that also came out of the African earth. And I really enjoyed doing those. There. And we actually got a wonderful sponsorship from the Dutch embassy for that African Earth exhibition, which made it much easier for us to mount a really first-class exhibition where we collected work from all over, from Malawi, Zululand, all our regions that, Ceramics SA had regional committees and groups in all the parts, all around Zimbabwe. So we were able to put up a very successful exhibition. Then to carry on with the lustres, this was an exhibition that we'd moved from our house in Pretoria to a retirement village. And I always had my space for my pots. I had a lovely little if the house was wonderful, but there was no pottery studio, I said no. So these porcelain pieces were made in my garage studio here on my little Shimpo wheel and in my hand for my 80th birthday, when Peter van Heerden from the Arts Association suggested that I would have a solo exhibition. I was pretty proud to be becoming 80. I didn't feel that I was at all, but anyway, I worked for a year on this exhibition, which necessarily had to be small pieces because I didn't have the big kiln anymore. So these are some of the room was painted black because I was working in white and blue and the lustres, and they had to. Peter is a wonderful person. He makes things look so good, and he plans to make an exhibition look special. So I made a wall of these masks because I had to have something to hang on the walls. And then I had some pots. Can you see?
That's masks.
Those are masks. So I had been doing a range of eggs every Easter for many years, and I had people who used to buy an egg every year, and so I had some eggs for the exhibition, and there's some more eggs and a bottle, and there's some of the white with the blue interior, and there's that group there. You could actually play some music on it by hitting it, and it had different tones to it. So you could play a little kind of musical item on it. And there's some of the white bowls with the wax resist technique that I found fascinating. I used to spend hours with it was so relaxing to use this technique. I'm sure you all know how it works, where you put the wax onto the unfired work and then rub it away, and you get this relief pattern. And it's difficult to do on fine porcelain because you very easily can rub through the porcelain, so you have quite a few rejects along the way. But just sitting there quietly, painting the wax on with and it just is something that relaxes you completely, takes you away from everything. These were test pieces with slip and the wax technique. If you put the slip on first, then the wax, and you rub away, then you have the slip showing in relief, and the other way around, you have the slip on the top and the wax, and you rub away in between and get the porcelain. That's good pictures, but these are all test pieces of, this is the black and white with the slip and the wax resist. And that's a translucent porcelain bowl. And then I did quite a lot of this, the colored clay. I really enjoyed, well, I enjoyed everything, but anyway, I better not say it all the time. But that was part of the colored clay, and also that was from an exhibition where I put the clay, there was no glaze. And those, if we have time afterwards, I'll explain how I did this one on the clay, the colored clay on the top. And that is the pot that I had on the Corribrick collection. Can you see what date it was, Mark?
No, it doesn't say.
I can't remember the date, but it was from a regional exhibition that we had at the Boyster-Skolomovsky Gallery in Sunnyside, which hasn't existed for many years now. I must tell you that perhaps a little bit about my involvement with Ceramics SA, if that's all right, Rika.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can continue.
After I joined Ceramics SA, I became quite involved, and I went from Port Elizabeth, where we had our branch set up, to my first National Council meeting in Durban, and where I was joined by the chairman of all the other regions. And that was my introduction to ceramics, to APSA, Association of Potters. When we moved to Pretoria, I spent quite a lot of time getting my studio going, and before I really went back into the association. But that has been a great pleasure to me also, because it was wonderful to be associated with people, of like-minded people. We had workshops every month. We got together, we talked, we had wonderful exhibitions. Once every 2 years, we had a national exhibition. Every year, each region would have a regional exhibition. And every 2 years, we would have a national exhibition, either in Cape Town or up here in Gauteng. And for that national exhibition, we would invite an international ceramic artist or potter to come out and be our award judge and give workshops. And it was a great privilege for me to meet all these wonderful people who had reached the top of their field, who worked in various types of clay and had various techniques and had so much to teach, and were so sharing and just able to relate to the South African potters, and they loved it. It became quite a little joke that the British potters were sort of jockeying for next year's national exhibition, because they had a wonderful holiday here when they came. They used to come for about 4 weeks and travel around the country, and they were treated like royalty. And we had quite a large house at that stage, and so when they were in Gauteng, they mostly stayed with us. And that was also wonderful, because they just fitted in and, shared everything they knew. So for me was also a wonderful part of being part of Ceramics SA. I was on the committee, and I had served 2 terms as national chair, where I used to have to go around the country and do selections for exhibitions, and also meeting the local potters. And I think one of the greatest joys of being part of this whole big clay family in South Africa is the people, because the people are so wonderful. They're caring and sharing and want to learn. And that, I think, too, is so important, to learn, to go and look at exhibitions, go and feel other people's pots, look at books, look at videos, but try and see the real thing as often as you can, and learn what is a good pot and what is maybe not a good pot, because then your own work will improve and you will grow, and maybe get to the stage where somebody's inviting you to Japan or somewhere else. And I just think that we are a wonderful family of people all around the world now, because that is what I feel, because I've met these people from all around the world. And when my husband and I used to travel, we would always make the point of going on a special pottery visits to people, and we would just be so welcomed. I phoned Michael Cardew, I was one of the most famous British potters. I phoned him one day and said, we're in the area, can we come and meet and look at your studio, look at your work? Oh, he said, yes, tomorrow's my 71st birthday, please come and have tea. And so there we ended up around his kitchen table, drinking out of his marvelous mugs and sharing it with some of the other British potters who had come to say happy birthday to him. And these potters in Europe live in the most amazingly beautiful places. So we got around quite a lot visiting them. And I think that's all.
Now you must tell us about Bernard Leach. You also visited his studio, did you not?
Oh, yes, we went to Bernard Leach. Bernard Leach was older than Michael Cardew, so I suppose he was about 80. And he was very ill at that stage. But we found, and his wife Janet, who was a lot younger than him, was also a very good potter. She said, please come. And when we arrived there, she gave me a key and said, just down there in the woods is his own private gallery where he's got his collection. Here's the key. Inside, there's a cabinet where you can get the details of the work that's on the shelves. And there's a table and 2 chairs, and you just can take any pot down, put it on the table, look at it, touch it. And this is what I mean by touching people's work. You know, if you go to an exhibition and you just put out your hand to touch a pot, that will tell you that that's a good pot. You will know instinctively that the size of the rim, the diameter of the rim, and the way the pot is formed will have the right balance of weight. There's so many little things. I mean, there's so many little tips that I've learned along the way. But Bernard Leach was a very good experience also.
Did you purchase any of the pieces then?
Pardon?
Did you purchase any of his pieces or of his work?
No, they were very expensive.
I thought
and,
so.
Yes. And also they were big, large pieces. You know, when we traveled, we had to buy smaller things because you couldn't really. I suppose I could have bought a mug, but he wasn't going to really, he wasn't in the selling mood. He was in the entertaining mood. And his studio was an eye-opener, Michael Cardews, because he wedged his clay on an old gravestone, which he'd put flat onto some base. And in his studio, he had a huge studio, and he had apprentices. The apprentices exactly the same size, weight, etc., mugs. And if one wasn't good enough, out went the whole lot, and they had to start again on another 70. And he had his first wheel in the studio, and it was a kick wheel, and it was attached to a penny, one of those penny farthing bicycles with the big wheel at the back, top, and the small wheel at the back. And the apprentice had to pedal on this bicycle. I mean, this is probably 100 years ago that he was doing that, to make this other wheel go around. And he still had that in his studio. So he was a very quirky person. He went to Africa, to Abuja, and he'd set up a marvelous pottery set up there. He taught the local people and improved their economy tremendously for a few years. And he was very influenced by Africa. And some of our potters, Bernard Lee, Cyrus Bosch, and I think Harm Rabinowitz, some of our potters went over and actually worked as apprentices with people like them. Oh. So we must look back at our own history too, because we have had some incredibly wonderful people with so much knowledge, and we mustn't let that knowledge just disappear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jerice, you said you have a few pieces that you would like to show us up close.
Well, I will show you. Can you see this?
Yes, your luster bowl is yes.
Yes, that's one of the luster. Which way? This way.
That is right close up, and if you go further back,
further back,
like that's
okay.
Perfect. Yes.
Okay, I just want to explain that some of the tools for the luster work.
Yes.
This is my test piece.
I can't see a bit higher. There you go.
There.
Can't hold it.
That is for the lusters. And lusters are not all gold and silver. You get lusters in lots of colors. And I've got a lot of the colors. And I don't know what the price is now, but there is can you see that? It's very tiny. I'll take it out of the sponge. Yes, that's how. I think that's about the last bit of 2 grams of gold I bought, and that was about 500 Rand. I don't know what it costs now. But then the brushes, I'm sure you all know about this. You use these very fine brushes. And this is my tool that is, I think, originally a batik tool. Can you see that? Yeah. You this little, and it gives, and you can also use it for wax if you want fine lines with the wax when you're doing the wax relief. So I can recommend these tools. And the lusters I've often combined with the on-glazes. The on-glazes, this one shows you some on-glaze. There's quite a lot of on-glazes. Can you see?
Yes, we can see.
So there are quite a lot of on glazes there, they fire at the same temperature. So it's quite nice to, you know, use the two together, because then you can get these other matte, and I don't know if you know these on glazes, the Amico ones.
Hold it up a little.
Yes, there you go.
You know those.
I don't know if we still get that in South Africa, but I know that you can buy it in a dry powder form now.
Yes, you can buy them in dry powder form as well. We could, but these are very nice to use. And the dry powder, you can mix your own. And I think I saw on one of your WhatsApps that people were looking for something like the CMC or something to thicken up the runny glazes. Well, I can give you a little tip, but honey does it very well.
Honey.
And you get honey, and you get a very nice smell from your kiln.
Oh, lovely.
And when you're using lusters and you've got your luster on the tile, and it maybe gets a little bit dry, or it's a bit runny and won't stick, especially if you're on a vertical surface and it starts to run down the surface, just put a dash of honey on it and mix it in. And then it will stay in that spot where you put it.
Wonderful. That's now a very, very special tip. Thank you.
Oh, I've got lots of other tips like that. And these...
Are you going to write a book for us, Jerice?
Oh, a different kind of luster that comes in a tube. I don't know if you know this one.
No, we don't.
These are wonderful. Gold and bronze, and I've got a red and an emerald.
Is that like an on-glaze or is it a luster, Jerice?
It's a sort of mixture between an on-glaze and a luster.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It also fires at the same temperature.
I'm not sure if that is something.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of these things are available here anymore. But if you've got family or people overseas, in America, you'll easily get these things. Yes. And in Europe also, in England also. I can show you this. This was quite a can you see it?
Yes, just hold it still for a moment. Yes, and then maybe take it towards your face. That says Leonardo da Vinci.
This was for a Leonardo da Vinci exhibition. I think it was a 100th anniversary exhibition. And we were invited to make, you know, things in the style of Da Vinci. And that is all done with on glazes and lusters. And the background is obviously the glaze. I think one of the most important things to remember about the lusters is that the lusters take their shine from the glaze. So if you have a matte glaze, your luster will be more matte looking. If you have a shiny glaze, the luster will be more shiny. And the temperatures in your kiln are very important. So you must always fire it at the right temperature.
Wonderful. I want to open up if there's anybody who would like to ask Jerice a question.
Jerice, I've got a question, but quite sure if there is an answer to it. But I love the fact that you were able to go to a technical college and learn there, and also that a school made pottery part of their curriculum. You don't see that much anymore. You know, our technical colleges, I know TUT does have, as part of their fine arts course, they do have ceramics. But there's no way that you have to go now to a private studio to learn how to do pottery. There's not really that kind of learning in academic environments. And I don't think there's a lot of schools that have obviously paid as much attention. How can we encourage that more, or help schools to, I mean, I've got a school 1 kilometer away from me. How do I approach them and say, let's incorporate ceramics? What would you suggest?
Well, at the stage that I was there at school, every single school in Pretoria had a kiln. It was provided by the department, but very few of them actually knew what to do with it. They thought it was just a packing storage space. There were a few schools and a few, Gail de Klerk, who was very much part of Ceramics SA, was also the St. John's College. So we used to, often do things together. And St. Albans, when we started a pottery studio at St. Albans, and they actually are fighting for the boys to.
I'm sure there was quite a few other kinds of clay fighting that went on there.
Oh, very much so, yes. But it was actually a privilege in the way in Port Elizabeth. There was no university there in those days, although now the university has a wonderful ceramics section at UPE.
Yes.
But because there were pottery, there were commercial studios in Grahamstown and East London. There was Hamburger pottery, and there was one of the other big potteries was down there. The technical college was very much a place for people to learn. I don't think there weren't so many people like me who were just sort of wanting to know a bit more about everything. For instance, with the glazes, why were we not allowed to use red? Because it had cadmium in it, and cadmium is poisonous, and you don't make a casserole dish and make a bright red casserole dish. And I wanted to know those things.
Yes.
And fortunately, my husband was able to sort all that out in my mind for me. But
so how do we approach schools now that
my daughter, who was a student at Girls' High, as I said, is now the headmistress at Girls' High. And I will certainly ask her if there's some way that we can do something about it, because the girls there, I'm not even sure whether they still do the ceramic option, or if they're only doing sort of part-time, classes now.
Yeah, it would be very interesting to know.
Yes, perhaps she can get some motivation going on that.
I think so, because, I know that a conversation I had with Colleen was that she was so excited. She was like, we need more young potters, we need young people to come up. But how are they going to get interested if they're never exposed to it, unless their mom or their granny or somebody they know does pottery? How will they be exposed to it?
Yes. Well, I think I will try and follow it. It's always been a problem, but at the stage when I was there as national chair and everything, we had a section on exhibitions. We had the school students and the university students, and we always had a new signatures prize for those sections. And we used to, in the old times, get quite a lot of schools sending work through from all over the country.
Sure. So we maybe just need to engage them again.
Yes, I think so, because we do need them. But there is a resurgence of ceramics now all over the world. Ceramics has become an art form, but it is also still very much a hands-on creative form for people who are not aiming to become Magdalena O'Dondo's, who sells her pots for I don't know how many thousands of pounds now. and who was, by
Yes.
the way, one of our judges a few years ago. She was one of our judges and came out from South Africa. She was born in Kenya, and her work is now, and our own Andili Giovanni, who is the most delightful young man, is making a fortune in America with his ceramics. And we really need more people like that. And I don't think he went to any colleges or anything. He just loved making pots.
Yes.
He did ceramic design at the Western Cape Technicon.
Did he? Mm.
Yes. Jerice, just a question. When you talked about these international visitors,
Well,
you told me about, is it Peter Beard?
Yes, Peter Beard. Peter Beard was here, he stayed with us, and we introduced him to, what did I say?
Cola tonic.
Cola tonic. Yes, because he didn't drink. We went out one night and he said, well, he didn't know what to drink. He didn't want a beer. I said, well, try this cola tonic. Oh, he really took to that. The next morning we had to go and buy a bottle and keep it in the house. And when he got back to England, he phoned me one day and he said, I can't find this cola tonic anywhere. Where am I going to get it? And I can tell you another little story about Jeff Oestreich from America, who also, Mark, there's a jug up the top there in the middle. And you can, a funny looking jug. Jeff Oestreich came out, also a delightful man, and we picked him up at the airport. And there's one of his jugs. Can you see it?
Yes, beautiful.
Okay, so we picked him up at the airport and we're driving home and I hear this tick-tock coming from the back. And I thought, has he got a bomb? Is he an international terrorist? Where is this coming from? Tick-tock, tick-tock. And I said to him, Peter, what is tick-tocking in your bag at the back? He says, it's my metronome. I'm learning to play the piano. I should think in his 50s or something. I'm learning to play the piano because my mother's very ill and she was a great pianist, and I promised her I would play the piano for her before she died. So I need a piano to practice on. So we had to organize somebody who had a piano that he'd go to every day. In every region he went to with his metronome and had to have a place where he could practice the piano. They were just such interesting people.
Such an adventure, getting to know them close, because I don't think, going to a workshop, you really get to know these international artists.
No, but when they stay with, then you certainly do. What they like to eat and what they like to do. There was one, I can't remember who it was. He just wants to go to the local pub, one of the Englishmen, And I said, well, we just don't have local pubs. So I took him to visit some Australian friends, and that was good enough.
Oh, that's wonderful. Leanne's earlier asked the question, are you going to write us a book, Jerice?
I doubt it. I've got macular degeneration now, so my sight is fading. I can still see the pots, thank goodness, and hold them and touch them. But writing a book, I don't know. I might,
You could audio record and somebody else could transcribe it for you, Jerice.
Yes. Now I need a co-author. If anyone wants to volunteer to be a co-author, then I'd love to do it.
Well, I'll transcribe anything you put onto tape.
Mark's just handing me an egg. You know my eggs. Okay?
There you go. Yes.
Yeah. But what you don't know about the eggs is that the egg has another egg, and that egg inside it has an angel.
Just slightly higher that we can see. There you go.
And there's the angel that comes out of the inside egg.
Wow, very special. You haven't made any eggs recently, or you stopped making them, no?
No, I've stopped making them now. I've got a few left, but every egg has got something inside it. Well, this is quite an interesting egg, because this egg's got a lot of on glazes and not so much luster. Can you see that?
Yes, you can see. You can do it closer to your face.
Can you see?
Yes.
Inside this egg is an ocarina. Do you know about ocarina? I'm not going to play it for you, but I can assure you that it does play. You blow through here, and you close up the various holes, and it plays. And that's a little porcelain ocarina inside that egg, and you get a little explanation with it to say how to play it.
Very special. Jerice, you can also tell us about the Corribury collection, who has a special exhibition on that you were part of now recently.
Yes, the Corribury collection. I've been a trustee of the Corribury collection for about the last 20 years. Gail de Klerk was a trustee, and but she has now retired, so Peter Jeff has taken over her position. So we have two trustees from Ceramics SA, and we have Haneli from the Art Museum, who is a trustee, and we have a trustee from Corribury, because they are our sponsors. And the Corribury collection next year is going to be 50 years old. So we want to plan to have something very special next year. But at the moment, the Corribury collection is open at the university. It is on loan to the university, part of it, on loan to the university for a year. It normally is housed at the Pretoria Art Museum, and Haneli is the curator. On that is a historic collection of ceramics, South African ceramics. And so there is some wonderful work, and you can see the development of ceramics by going through that exhibition. At the moment, it's open, I think in the mornings only, and you can phone and book. And it would be a very nice idea to take some friends, or if you teachers take your class and book a tour of that collection. So I do advise everybody to go and try and look at it.
It is at the University of Pretoria.
Yes, at the University of Pretoria. If you look up the phone number and ask for the museum department, there's a whole Dr. Sion Tiny Nell is the head of the museums, and they've got a whole floor. The top floor now this year is going to be titled The World of Ceramics, and the Corribury collection is the central collection, and then they have a wonderful clay on a video that you can see how they made the original pots that were found at Mapungubwe. That's also very well worth looking at. And they have a nice collection of their own ceramics. So it's a very good place to take young potters.
I will try to find the link, and then I'll share it on the group as well for people to go and make an appointment and visit it. I know that I saw on Facebook that they were doing some marketing.
Yes, I'm sure they are. Yeah.
Wonderful. Anybody else want some further questions or ask Jerice anything?
I've got a question. I want to know about the water etching. I think it's called etching that you do.
Yes,
What kind of wax do you use on your pots? Because I find the Amaco wax is extremely expensive. That works well. But is there anything else we can use that you can suggest?
I use Cobra liquid wax, and you warm it up.
Yeah.
and that works perfectly. You must put it on the greenware, but that must be completely dry. And then, like that plate I showed you, that whole plate was waxed. The pattern was waxed before the colors and things went on. Waxed, and then the blue glaze was put on. And then all the other colors went on afterwards. So you can use that. It's quite hard to get. It comes in a bottle like this, the Cobra liquid wax. But it's very,
so we apply it and then wait until it gets a bit it settles.
Dry. It must get dry, completely dry.
All right.
And then you rub it away with a sponge.
Oh, fantastic. That's a wonderful tip. Thank you so much.
No, it's a lovely technique. I really love doing it. I'm looking for one here. I don't think I have one here.
I love your work. I've got one last question, please.
Yes.
That painting behind you, who made that? Is that one of your work?
The paintings?
Yes, on the wall behind you.
No, those are portraits of my children, done by an Australian artist, a young Australian artist who was making her way around the world painting portraits. And she came to my house and she painted those portraits and went on to the next place and earned enough money to go to the next country. And I looked her up subsequently, and she's become a very famous Australian portrait painter.
Oh, wonderful. It's beautiful. Thank you so much. Thanks for your talk. It was lovely.
I enjoyed it. I hope it taught you something. There's one more thing I think I can show you, or two more things. I said I would talk about this one.
Yes, the agate.
Can you see it? I love this agate ware. So this pot is thrown up to here. And then I make, and then I make a piece of material with coils, flat with coils, and roll it out. And you must remember this is porcelain, so this is very thin when you're putting it on here. So I let this bit dry and then cover this with a bit of plastic wrap so that the surface is not so dry. And then I make this as a flat piece and I roll it into a coil, into a circle, and put it on to here. And it's now standing up like this, and then I pull it up so that the pattern comes up in one piece.
So you do the second half on the wheel as well, Jerice?
Yes, on the pot.
Okay.
But not in separate little bits. I don't do them. I make them into like a piece of material and put it around like that and then pull it up. Beautiful. That's quite nice. And I'll just show you this last very beautiful pot, which is not my pot, but I bought it in America. I don't know if you can see the crystals.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And you can see the little thin top. I did some crystal glazing at some stage. I don't have any of my pieces left, but that's also a very fascinating technique, is to do the crystal glazes, because you have to have a clay that is compatible with the glaze and all sorts of things, but that's a story for another time. And it was really very interesting. And that little thing, when I make the bottles, you use a throwing stick when you want to make the bottle come up thinner and thinner and thinner. And you use different thicknesses of throwing sticks. And eventually you maybe, I get to the stage where I use a toothpick to make it thin enough to have that very tiny little opening. on a bottle. So I don't know, there are lots of tips and things. And I've so enjoyed talking to you all, and thank you for listening.
No, thank you,
And
Jerice.
enjoy your journeys, make them worthwhile. I'm sure you will. And I'm looking forward to seeing all your work. And I would really like to see your work going further onto selected exhibitions, because you learn a lot from that.
Well, Jerice, thank you very much for your time and sharing some pearls of wisdom. I think we'll have to set up to do some workshops with you, particular on luster and particular agate ware workshops that we maybe put online, but we'll discuss that.
That would be lovely. I love teaching.
Wonderful. So we can continue with that.
One of my passions, and teaching about clay.
No,
Thank you so much. Thank you.